Okay.
I need to mute it when it comes up.
All right. Are we live? I think we're live.
Maybe. I don't see it on the computer yet.
You don't? Okay.
But usually there's delay. So
Okay. So are you on YouTube where you're looking? Hi,
yeah,
everybody. If anybody
we're
hears
live.
us.
We're
Okay,
live.
we're live.
Usually there's delay.
Okay. I don't even know where to look. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We hope some people are here. If you're not here, if you want to give us questions, but Hayden and I will just start talking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here we go. Comments. I'm going to put comments up. So, welcome, whoever's here, and invite your friends. My name is Aubree Adams. I'm a former Colorado mom. I'm a host mom for kids in recovery, or teens or young adults in recovery. I shouldn't call them kids. I'm just old, so I look at them as kids. Um, and I was fortunate enough to be director and develop a community called Every Brain Matters. And Every Brain Matters is a community of advocacy, support, and science. And I was fortunate enough to meet Hayden through YouTube and was watching some of his videos where he was talking about cannabis-induced psychosis and his experience and with that and really what I was really interested is his healing from that and his recovery. And I was just watching video after video, and I was really inspired, and I got a lot of hope from listening to Hayden. So I want to introduce you to Hayden, and he's going to share a little bit about his story. And please put a question in the post. I don't know how that goes, but this is our first time live streaming, so bear with us. And we're here to talk to you guys. We're not here to just talk to each other. We want to hear from you. We want to just raise awareness about cannabis-induced psychosis. So thank you for joining us. And we're very glad you're here. And just please know you're not alone. So, Hayden, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Hayden. My YouTube channel name is Just Being Hayden. It's right there on the bottom there. If you want to check that out, feel free to do so. I'm really grateful to be here. So thank you for having me on, Aubree. It's been a pleasure working with you so far. So I'm glad that there's more people talking about it. It's definitely something that needs more awareness raised for. Um, yeah, I'm not necessarily against cannabis, but I do think that there needs to be awareness for these kind of things for sure. So, as Aubree said, I did have two cannabis-induced psychosis experiences. One when I was 18, and the other one when I was 24. Um, the first one, both of them basically started because obviously I was using cannabis, but the reason behind me using cannabis was because I was feeling um, kind of unsatisfied with life, or there was kind of a hole in my life. Um, and so by me using the cannabis, it sort of gave me a different perspective on life, a different way to experience life, a different way to I don't know, it just made me feel better in some ways. I had a lot of sort of like not pleasant side effects with cannabis that I didn't necessarily enjoy, like the anxiety, and sometimes it was a little bit overwhelming because I always experienced cannabis much more intensely than other people did. So sometimes when I would smoke, I would like literally be hallucinating, which like wasn't necessarily uncomfortable, or I didn't necessarily not like it. It's just that most people didn't experience that when they had cannabis. So I think I was sensitive to cannabis to begin with. Um, and my first psychosis kind of happened at a time when I was pretty unstable. Like I said, I was looking for answers. I was trying to find myself in some ways. I was trying to sort of understand what the purpose of life was and why I was here, and had very sort of existential questions, and led me towards a very ungrounded sort of perspective on reality, looking for synchronicities and trying to understand like um, very spiritual things that I think are things that I'll probably learn later on in life when I've had more like grounded experience in life and just being human and experiencing things. I think that's where wisdom comes from. You can't just like forcibly become wise. And I think that's what I was kind of trying to do to myself, thinking that cannabis was going to help me with that. Unfortunately, it kind of spiraled downhill further and further. I found mentors that like made that spiral go down even further. I continued to use cannabis, and eventually, I went to this guy's house and had like a lot of cannabis, and I had DMT on top of that, and that just triggered my psychosis. It lasted about a month. Um, I mean, it's hard to say exactly how long psychosis lasts because it kind of like happens and then it tapers off. There's not like a set like cutoff, like, oh, it ended at this date. It's more like a gradual progression in and out of psychosis. But generally, I would say it probably took me about 2 months, 3 months to sort of let the delusions go away. And then there was a depression after that, which was probably honestly the hardest part of the recovery was the depression and the recovery part afterwards. The psychosis itself personally for me was not the hardest part because everything made sense to me. Everything was just like that's what was happening. That was my reality. That's why it's called psychosis. You know, it's a break from reality. Your reality does not line up with what consensus reality is, or in other words, what other people deem as what reality is. So um,
How did you know, Hayden? Like, did you think it was the DMT that was causing your psychosis at first, or and how did you come to realize it was the cannabis?
Yeah, I thought it was the DMT because DMT is like literally like the most powerful hallucinogen you can possibly take. So I was like, oh well, obviously it's the DMT. It's not the cannabis, you know. Um, it's like you would think it's the more powerful thing, you know. And I think that DMT definitely had a factor in it because psychedelics also can trigger psychosis as well. So it wasn't innocent either.
Right.
But I thought that it was the DMT. So when I started using again, like when I was 24, I thought I'd be fine. I was like, I tested the waters, you know, like I wasn't like, oh, like I'll be fine. I was like, I tried smoking, like waited a week to see if I'd be okay. And I was okay. I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe we'll try twice a week. And then I was still fine for a while. Um, but gradually over time, I became like kind of more manic and more like uplifted. And I even like had a trip planned to go to India and stuff, and I quit my job, and you know things were looking up, and then wham, psychosis.
So, so your first CIP, cannabis-induced psychosis, was
Mm-hmm.
like you were 18 or 19,
Mm-hmm.
and then you didn't use marijuana for almost 6 years.
Years.
Yeah, and then you thought, well, I'm going to try it again,
Mm-hmm.
and then you and I have talked a lot, so I know your story very well.
Mm-hmm.
But can you talk a little bit about when you were going into cannabis induced psychosis the second time, how
Sure.
you knew it was coming on and how you did try to
Mm-hmm.
get help before it got too bad?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, the reason I used cannabis the second time is because I was working a 40-hour a week job, which was stressful, obviously. Um, so I was looking for something to kind of decompress, to let go of that tension. And I was doing yoga and other things like that, but I still didn't really have great tools to be able to manage my stress and anxiety levels because I definitely deal with chronic anxiety for sure. Um, that's something I've always struggled with. Um, so I think I was looking for something to fix that, and it helped for a while. But gradually, like I started getting manic, like I said. I actually stopped cold turkey smoking like 2 weeks before my psychosis. I smoked one time. Like I could tell like there's a point where like I felt like the cannabis was like helping me learn and helping me grow to some degree because like when you're high, like you can kind of see things from a different perspective and see things from a different angle. So like if there's a conflict in your life, like I felt like I could sort of resolve it like by seeing a different angle. But then I just started feeling like I was just smoking it just because there's nothing else to do, and I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Like I don't want to be that kind of person that just smokes because like there's nothing else to do. So I just stopped cold turkey. I was like, I'm done. Like I don't want to smoke anymore. Um, and then it was 2 weeks later. it's always weird when I share this part of the story because like nobody understands it. But I had this experience with this girl where I gave her a hug, and it was like this really intense experience. And it was like almost not traumatizing, but it just put me into a state of shock because the connection was so strong. I never experienced something like that before, and it put me into shock, and that was what put me over the edge into psychosis. And from that point on, I knew something was off. I could tell that I started to feel the kind of ungrounded state that I was very familiar with from my first psychosis. I started to kind of like slip into a different dimension to some degree. And I went to my parents and I told them, I need to get medication. I can tell that I'm slipping. Um, and they still don't, I'm kind of ashamed to say this, but they still don't know that I smoked pot the second time because they they told me that if I smoke pot again, that they would like disown me, which I think they just did out of fear. And I think if they understood, they would be okay with it. But I don't think it really changes much of my story. It doesn't change the progress I've made. It doesn't change like my relationship with them to some degree because I am where I am. Those were my choices that I made. And yes, they helped me, but like they love me. And so I haven't necessarily told them, mostly out of my fear. But so I didn't tell them about that, but I told them I needed medication because I could tell I'm slipping into psychosis. And they could tell too. They could see something was wrong, but like I couldn't get a psychiatrist because I wasn't on meds anymore. I couldn't get into a hospital because I wasn't psychotic enough, even though like I clearly knew like what was happening. Like I was like, I'm literally going into psychosis.
Yeah, you've been there. You'd experienced it already, and you knew it
Yeah.
was coming. Yeah.
So we got sleep medication, and I was still sleeping, which was like a good sign. Because like once you stop sleeping, that's when like you're done, like you're toast. If you can't sleep, you're full blown psychosis usually. So I was still sleeping. I so I call psychosis. There's like different states of psychosis. So there's like the beginning stage where you kind of like have one foot in, one foot out, and then there's what I call flipping to the other side, where you're like totally disconnected from reality. You're totally in your own world. Um, Obviously, I flipped in the first one. Obviously, like it was an immediate flip. Like before DMT and after DMT, there was like I had flipped over. With the second one, it was more gradual, and I flipped when I was in the hospital, not when I was with my parents. But leading up to going to the hospital, I felt like much more sensitive and much more empathetic. Like I could sort of sense people's emotions and sense people's intentions very perceptively,
That's oh,
more
I'm
so
sorry.
than I could normally.
I'm,
Um, but
I'm
then it
sorry.
all what's that?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want you made a really, really good point that I want to point out to the viewers. Like the first time the psychosis was really intense, right? Because after the DMT, it was like the DMT was the fuel for the fire.
Mm,
And then the second time when it was just cannabis you were using, it
mm,
was like you said, it was gradual, it
mm,
was insidious, right?
mm,
So then a lot of people, like if they're doing a different drug, they blame it on the other drug, but marijuana is a factor in it too. And then
mm,
depending on how you're using it, the concentration, the delivery system to the brain, it
mm,
can come on faster and stronger. But I think that's a really key point, and I didn't mean to interrupt your talking, but I think the audience needs to understand that
mm,
sometimes, it can come on very gradually and insidious. So
mm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Um, but yeah, so that all those kind of perceptions and stuff kind of switched. Like once you flip over to like when I had like one foot on one side and one foot on the other side, I could kind of like perceive like through the layers. But then once you're flipped on the other side, you're basically not even functional in this world. Um, so that that there's nothing you can really do with someone who's like completely flipped over. You just have to wait for them to come back where they have one foot back in this world. Because there's just nothing like you can say anything. Like you could literally tell me that like oh, there's a poster behind me. And I could interpret that as like, oh, like that poster will save the world. I need to go like catch that and like retrieve it and bring it to the pond and like sink it to the bottom, and that'll trigger a reaction that will save the world. You know, that could be what I'm thinking when you say that. So it like there's nothing you can do. It takes time for them to kind of come down. And some people don't come down either. Like, I hate to say it, but like, you know, some people don't come back and some people don't fully recover. So like, yes, there is hope. Yes, I was able to come back, but like, that's reality. And that's why it's important to take the recovery process day by day, because like, it's not about where you get, it's not about where you get to. It's about like what you do every day and what progress you make every day. That's the focus. Because if you focus on like what you wish you had, you're going to be a miserable person. You
That
know?
is, those are such good points. So your recommendation to a family member, a parent that
Mm.
has a loved one, a child or a loved one that's in psychosis, whether it's coming on through cannabis or a different drug or stress or a combination, no matter what,
Right.
um, don't argue with them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to change them and argue with them and tell them what they're seeing or feeling or experiencing is not real, because it's very real to them,
Right.
and that's just going to cause contention and more disconnection, and they really need a lot of support so they can stay safe until they can stabilize more and come out of the psychosis. So thank you for saying that, Hayden.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, the like as a caretaker for someone who's going through psychosis, you kind of have to learn how to be neutral. You have to learn how to be just kind of in the middle. Like, you don't want to feed into their delusions, but you also don't want to like repress their delusions. It's kind of like meditation. Like, there's a thought there, you see it, you let it go, you let it pass by. Like, you don't necessarily like want to fuel it, and you don't want to, because if you think about it, if you're acknowledging it or if you're reprimanding it or like saying, oh, that's wrong, either way, you're reinforcing it. So you don't want to be reinforcing the delusions. The best way to do it is to just like stay neutral. Don't ignore them. Don't like give them no affection, but don't like play into like whatever is going on in their head. And obviously you're not going to be perfect. So like if you mess up, don't beat yourself up. Like,
Right.
it's part of the process, but it's a learning for the caregiver as well, to learn how to be neutral and learn how to not necessarily get sucked into the story. Um,
I wonder if distracting too, like, because like sometimes, like, well, I used to work with people with dementia a lot, and family members would come in and try to argue with them that
mhm.
the way they felt or what was happening with them wasn't real. And then the person with dementia would get really upset
Right,
and sometimes agitated to the point where they are harming themselves or somebody else.
right.
And so like sometimes we would just distract them
Yep.
and talk about something else and like really agree with them. So would those techniques help with somebody in psychosis with
Definitely. Redirecting is a great tool. Redirecting is probably like one of the number one tools you're going to use with someone in psychosis. Because, like, honestly, my mom did a great job with it. Whenever I started like thinking too much or like going into one of my like delusions, she would just like say, "Hey, come, Hayden, come out. Like, let's go clean the barn, or let's go like go work. Like, doing something physical that is in this reality that like cannot arguably be debated is a great way to sort of redirect. So like doing chores, like cooking dinner, like those are things that like will make them focus on the thing they're doing. And there's no story with cooking, you know, like there can be in their minds, but if you just focus on like, they can be like, oh, like maybe this world, or you know, this I can save or do this. Then you'd be like, oh, how, you know, how are the potatoes coming? Have you cut them yet? Then they're going to look at the potatoes, or you know, they might do something else. But it's hard because it's a case by case basis, and some people are worse than others. I think I was pretty easy to redirect, but some people who are psychotic are like violent and like they won't listen, and that's obviously a different scenario, which like I'm not trained to educate people on that, because I've never been in that caregiver role. I've just experienced psychosis myself.
yeah.
But it's very tricky. It's not easy. There's no right answers with like this kind of thing. It's everybody's just kind of trying to do the best they can. And, you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
It sounds like, some people in psychosis definitely need to be hospitalized and stabilized until they're back into a home environment with their family or whoever. And then so Hayden and I are talking about that point where they are out of the hospital, maybe back at home, and still there's still a recovery process. And
Yeah.
and really that recovery process really never kind of ends. It's once you have
Mm-hmm.
psychosis or psychotic break or something like that, life is going to be different, and there's going to be different tools to learn and stuff like that. So part of one of the things I really love about Hayden is that he talks about the tools he uses, and he understands that, and he's a very good like supporter, not just for families with loved ones that have psychosis or have experienced it, but he's a really good supporter for people who've experienced it themselves, and can provide that positive peer support. So
Mm-hmm.
we were talking, Hayden and I were. It seems like we always talk more before the live stream or the video recording starts, but we were just talking about how it's really important for family members to get the help and support they need. And it's not just about um, the person recovering from psychosis; it's about the whole family engaging and getting out of each other's way,
Mm-hmm.
so everybody can be who they are and where they're at, and work on themselves and focus on themselves. Because I think especially as parents, we get hyper focused on our kiddos that are experiencing that, and we feel like we want to go in and we want to fix it, and we can't fix it. They got to learn how to take care of themselves on their own with our love and support and understanding. But we've got to focus on ourselves and how we're responding to them, so we don't, inhibit or enable our codependency becomes really strong. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you were talking about how to kind of go in their separate ways, Hayden?
Yeah, definitely. I just want to quickly mention that if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat on YouTube. I have it up. So I know Bob Kemp asked if it'll be rebroadcasted later. And obviously, well, not obviously, but it'll be on YouTube, I think. Right,
Yes.
Aubree?
Yes, I will get it wherever I can. Yes, I will put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, feel free to ask questions. But to address that, yeah, the dynamics, like once psychosis happens in a family, everybody's involved, everybody's part of the recovery process. So it's, you really have to come together as a team and work together and have like a goal, like this is what we're trying to work towards. And not, the problem is like not everybody's willing to work towards that goal, or not everybody's willing to come together. No one's going to be perfect. So that's no matter who you are, no matter how much training you've had, you could be the best counselor, psychiatrist, caregiver in the world. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect. So it's more about coming together as a team, having a goal, working towards that, and adjusting as the progress goes along. So um, when you have someone who goes through something that intense, it's going to bring up issues in the other people, and it's going to kind of force the family to work on their issues. And people may not be willing to work on their issues, and some people may be willing to work on their issues. My family kind of worked on some, but didn't work on other things. I was really grateful because they really took care of me, but I think my family could use some healing still, and I'm hoping that I can help with that some in the future. But it's a journey, and it's not easy. Um,
It's
but
not easy. Not for anybody involved. It's scary.
it's
It's
scary. Yeah.
I mean, and Hayden, I don't know. We do have a question in the chat, and if you want to address that, but I don't want you to share anything you don't want to share here live. But if you can talk about some of the behaviors you had when you were experiencing psychosis,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And then Heidi asked, "Do you have any advice to people who are trying the drug?" Aside,
So yeah, sure. That's a great question actually, because that ties into a whole lot of areas. So my advice to people who are trying the drug is know the risks, be educated on what is possible, be educated on what the symptoms of what those possibilities are so you can catch it before it happens. And just know what you're using. So know what's in the stuff that you're using. I know that's not always easy, but try to get it from safer providers than, just like some person you don't know and they could have laced it with something, which can cause a whole lot of issues. I'm like I said at the beginning, I'm not necessarily against cannabis because it does help some people. It's just like any kind of medication or any kind of sort of substance you put in your body. Some people are allergic to it. Some people it doesn't react well. Other people it can really help them and it can be a lifesaver. So that's really up to the individual to decide. This is my opinion, but you really have to be aware of what could happen. It's just like tobacco or alcohol or any other kind of drug or medication. Even like other things like Coke. If you have like a bunch of Coke, it's probably not going to be good for you. It could probably induce diabetes. It could probably lead to obesity.
Yeah.
So,
And I really appreciate your honesty too, because I think there's a generation gap too, because your generation, like drug use is pretty normal. I mean, it's pretty, like you said, if you're going to use cocaine or you're going to use anything, you be informed, get whatever, what's in it and all that kind of stuff. But we know state sanctioned marijuana. I mean, the states they don't have the tools or the resources to regulate it, and they're full of contaminants. And then they have these really ultra potent concentrations where that's why we're seeing so much cannabis induced psychosis is because of their products. The black market marijuana was actually safer because we didn't have these extreme ultra potent concentrated THC products,
right.
And then we didn't have all these really, I mean, like they had the bongs and everything, but the vapes provide this like super fast delivery system to the brain. So one or two hits can cause a psychosis, experience. So
Yeah. I think you're referring to dabbing most likely, not vaping necessarily.
well,
Because
they put
dabbing
the oil, they
straight.
put the oil in vapes too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they do. They call it dabs, wax, shatter. They have different names for it. Crumble, you know, it's the oil. The oil, I guess, goes into the vapes, and yeah, the dabbing can be smoked in a bong or a vape, and it is just how they heat it up in the vape or on the bong. It's so it's quite interesting conversation, and I think it is like because your generation drug use is just like, hey, it's drug use, it is what it is, and my generation is like, whoa, like I mean, marijuana was definitely around, when I was growing up. And I mean, I don't know if I had psychosis, but I did smoke marijuana a couple times, and the last time I did, I was 16. I thought I was going to die. I mean, I really did, and that was low concentrated products. So I just can't even imagine. But anyways, talk more about that. I think that's good to be educated and stuff like that. If you had anything else you wanted to say, and then there's another question in the chat.
It said you started using marijuana again. Could you please tell us why you did this? Was this because of your anxiety levels? What did you think would have prevented your relapse? So I started using marijuana again because I was stressed from work, and I was looking for something to help me decompress. And so I guess I went back to like my previous way of coping. I didn't necessarily use cannabis that much to cope the first time. I used cannabis a lot more the second time, because the first time I went in psychosis, I only did it like once or twice a week, whereas the second time I was using it every day or every other day. So it's more common, or I used more frequently, and it was because of my anxiety. What would have helped me prevent relapse? Honestly, I don't think there would have been much that could have prevented me because I had it in my mind that it wasn't cannabis that caused it. So I was kind of in denial that happened the first time. So, which is pretty common. Most people who have, I don't know if I can't know how many stats, but a lot of people that have come to me with the drug induced psychosis have had two of them because they didn't realize that it was the drugs at first. So that's pretty common from what I've seen from my YouTube channel and people responding to me. So that kind of speaks to people are going to walk the paths that they need to walk in some ways, and doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I think a lot of people in society these days maybe view life as like this kind of clean, innocent thing in some ways, but life is messy, life is dirty, and like bad things happen. And like there's not necessarily, like, I personally think there is an organization to it, but there's also like not an organization to it. So you could be like stuck between two worlds the rest of your life. You could be stuck in a completely different world the rest of your life. Like that's just how life is. And so everybody's kind of walking these different paths, and you could have a son or daughter that's on a completely different life journey than what you are, and they need to learn things that like they don't even know why they making these choices, but that's who they are, and that's the choices they're making. And that's the lessons they need to learn. Personally, I think we're all here to learn something, and some paths are harder than others. And for some reason, they're making those choices. You can't stop someone from making a choice. You can repress them and invoke fear into them for a while, but every single, if you know anything about history, repression and fear always results in an outburst and a relapse of some sort, or like a change, or
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
pushing back and doing what they wanted to anyways.
Yeah, we definitely can educate them and empower them, but
Correct.
that's it. But you're absolutely right. They have their own choices and things that are normalized and more acceptable, in more access in
Mm.
society.
Mm.
That, I mean, that's why there's so many people,
Mm.
um, unfortunately, being harmed. But you speaking out, Hayden, is raising awareness. So
Mm.
you're planting that seed. So maybe if they are currently using and they're feeling that maybe disconnect, they can say, hey, maybe this isn't working for me,
Mm.
and I can reach out and get help. But I think you make very good points. We can't control what another person chooses to do at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
And where it's like it's just a waste of our time and their time, and then it damages our relationships with them.
Right. Right. But like you said, it's important to get the message out, which is why like I make my YouTube videos, because they're like, if the message was out there everywhere, I think it would happen a lot less, and there'd be more caution around usage of cannabis.
Yeah.
But it's not really out there that much. So that's why
No.
like
Because
that.
always see all over the media is promotion. It's all promotion and glamorizing it, and they make it look really sexy, and cool, just like they did with tobacco, just like they do with alcohol.
Right.
But it's like they have these canna mamas, like they're marketing not just to the youth, but they're marketing to parents. And I just it just horrifies me. It's like parents need to be sober around their children, like it
Right.
just floors my mind that this is happening. So it's like I just wish the promotion wasn't there, because it's really normalizing use of this drug.
Right.
And my friend just lost her son. I didn't share this with you, Hayden. I know we've got another comment in the chat. My friend's son just jumped in front of a train last week,
Hmm.
and he was on his fourth CIP, cannabis-induced psychosis,
Hmm.
and he had gotten better. He was working hard. They were all working hard, and it's devastating. And part of this issue is that we can't control the outcomes.
Right.
Hayden has a great outcome, and
Right.
so we want to raise awareness that recovery is possible, healing is possible, and it can happen, and letting go of the negative outcomes and doing the best we can with that. But unfortunately, some of the times the outcomes aren't are very devastating and sad. So
Hmm.
um, the Mary Mass says your story sounds somewhat familiar to my loved one. Want to ask, do you hear a voice or multiple voices?
I did not hear any voices. So the only thing I heard was like my own voice, my own interpretation of situations, my own sort of projection onto reality. So I never had like a voice telling me like, "Hey, this is what you should do," or just saying things. Um,
Yours was more delusions about what you needed to do, right? Could you
correct.
could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of my delusions were focused around saving the world. Um, so and love was a big theme too, saving the world and love. So the first one was more about good and evil and how like I needed to like rid the earth of evil. Um, I like viewed myself as like a Christ figure or some kind of enlightened being. And so my job was to like get rid of evil in the world. So it was a lot of like underworld and upper world kind of mythology that I was sort of in, that I need to like get out of the hell state and like transcend and move to a more like heaven state. Um, so that's kind of what it was focused around, was like raising the vibration of like the planet, or raising the frequency, or like raising like consciousness of the planet. Um, Whereas my second one was more, um, for psychosis standards, was more grounded. It was more based on like what I can practically do to like help the world. So like I was talking with my parents and like feeling what they were feeling and working with them, and I could sort of make a difference and say things and like help them work through problems. So it was kind of a different, and it took me less time to get out of my psychosis, but it was, my delusions were um, more, um, in my second one, it was more about my personal development rather than me saving the world, of more of like a journey, or like a, trying to sort of find what my path was to some degree. So that's kind of like how I fit in the world and what my next steps were in the world. Um,
So it sounds like you kind of had like you've had these feelings of like being a superhero, kind of like you had these powers, right?
mm, yeah, and I've mentioned before that like for me personally, psychosis wasn't all bad. You know, it's just like anything. With any gift or with any curse, it's two sides of one coin, because I personally think that like psychosis opens up doors that other experiences don't necessarily open, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend psychosis for anybody. There's much easier ways to open those those doors than like going into psychosis. But like having gone through those experiences, I feel like I can relate with a large group of people, and I think I've also like unlocked some things that like I wasn't aware of in myself before, because it pushed myself to like different states and different perspectives of how I can perceive myself in the world. So it's not all bad. Um, it's
You learn. It sounds like you learned a lot from it too. So,
correct.
and then you're here sharing it with us, so we have a better understanding. So, I
Correct.
really thank you for that. Another message in the chat is any recommendation for resources for parents, and I've got a banner here. So Every Brain Matters has a support group. You can go to everybrainmatters.org and go to the support group there. You can message me on YouTube or anything, and I can provide these links for you. And maybe I can put them in the chat too. Um, we also have Maranon. I've helped with those meetings and developed that website. And we just uploaded a bunch of great pamphlets with great information for parents that have children with cannabis-induced psychosis, or even marijuana addiction or cannabis use disorder. Um, and so, yes, there is support and help for parents. I have a private Facebook group too, and you'll see that if you click on, you know what, I'll just go ahead and get that link for you and put it in the chat here. So just give me a second here. Hayden, what do you have recommendations for parents?
I don't have that many recommendations other than like my YouTube channel, which is just going to be mostly my story and what's helped me, and you get a perspective from like from someone who's gone through psychosis. I also have a video about how to care for somebody who's in psychosis, which I kind of outlined already in this video, but it might be worth checking out if you're curious.
I really like that one video you did. I don't know if it was your last video because I haven't been on your YouTube channel for a little bit, but
Yeah, neither have I. I've kind of taken a hiatus.
it can get, social media is great, and like, look what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets a little hairy. I'm going to put another link to Andrea. This link right here is going to give you a lot what you need of resources. There's a couple blogs on there. There's videos, and you can contact me too. I help sponsor and I'm a mentor with other families looking for information. I've actually hosted kids in recovery in my home. I have loved ones who have had psychosis, and substance use disorder, addiction. So we're glad you're asking these questions. This last link is a wonderful link for you, Andrea. And reach out to me if you're not finding what you need. The YouTube channel here, Every Brain Matters. I have a lot of great videos from the program I'm part of here in Houston, Texas. I'm a former Colorado mom. I didn't find a lot of support in Colorado and understanding about this, but I think that was pretty much everywhere. But marijuana is so normalized in Colorado, it was just like, you know, I don't know, drinking coffee or something. But it was really hard on me, and my family with what was happening. And so anyways, I found a recovery community here in Houston, and I learned a lot here. I learned a lot. It took a long time, and I still work a strong recovery program. I have chosen to work the 12 steps for my recovery process as a parent, as a mother. My spouse had an issue, and my son. And they let me just kind of say that, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But the 12 steps to me were pretty much life saving for me. I know there's different pathways to recovery and there's different tools. So like I say try it all, take what you like, leave the rest, and keep asking those questions and finding the solutions, and really really focus on yourself and not your loved one who's experienced the cannabis induced psychosis or the addiction or whatever's going on. Get them the help and support they need, but the best thing you can do is focus on yourself and get your peer support. So going to meetings and stuff. I probably attend 4 to 5 meetings a week, and I've been in the recovery process since 2015. So it's important to me. It keeps my mental health. It has restored my sanity. I've always joked, Hayden, you'll like this one because we know think different factors can cause psychosis, but I always say I don't have to smoke pot to go into psychosis. I don't have to smoke pot to be delusional. When you see your loved one struggling so hard with these issues, I mean, your brain just goes into these places of that are not reality themselves, and you start thinking these fantasy things like you can fix this and everything's going to go back to normal, and then the denial comes in because we just can't process what's going on. We This is not what we planned for our kiddos, right? We kind
Mm-hmm.
of have this plan, but they have a different plan, and unfortunately some of those plans, like Hayden was sharing earlier, are has some problems, some big bumps in the road. Sometimes they got to climb a mountain and we want to fix it for them, or we want to carry them over the mountain with us, but we can't carry them over the mountain, but we can set the example and we can lead and we can put boundaries in place to guide them. But ultimately, they're going to have to make their own choices. And that's hard for parents to let go. It's hard to let go of that control. So that's my spiel about that. If you have anything you want to add to that, Hayden, please do so.
Yeah, I mean, we're all delusional, like in some way. Like it's that's just how it is, you know. Like we're these tiny humans that live in this huge world. Like we barely understand the basics. Like we understand some things about this world, but we're just scratching the surface with our understanding. So I think we're not designed to understand everything exactly the way it is. Who even knows what the way it is? But we're all operating based off of what we've experienced, what we've been taught, and what we choose to pay attention to. So those are three limiting factors that we have. So we're all kind of living in our delusional world, and we've created a consensus of what things are. but I don't think reality is as solid as it seems to be. It's just that we choose to focus on that, and that's what allows us to be practical and be help us function in the world, because that's what we're designed to do. That's where we are, is a physical world. So
Hey,
um,
do you know if you were using high concentrated THC products, or were they just like low concentration, or do you know? Were you using the stuff that came from the industry?
yeah, I came from Michigan, so um,
Okay.
yeah. But I don't know what the concentration of THC to CBD was, or what the if it was sativa or indica, or anything. I just said like, hey, like I'd like to get some weed, and the guy's like, how much do you want? And I was like, I don't know, $80 worth. And then he weighed it out and gave it to me. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So you did get products from the industry.
mm,
Um, I I have had a couple conversations with Hayden. We've gotten to know each other over the past, I don't know, few months. I don't know, 3 or 4 months.
yeah,
And
4 months probably, yeah.
you did a presentation to the Every Brain Matters support group,
Mm,
and it was awesome because when it gave us a lot of hope. It gave the parents a lot of hope and understanding, so we can. I know if our health improves, our child's health is going to improve. It's just a reaction like that. But Hayden said something that really caught my attention, and I thought it was a very key point. He said, cannabis or marijuana is a powerful plant that needs to be respected. Can you talk a little bit about that, Hayden?
yeah, I mean, it's a powerful substance. Like, it can put you into an altered state. That's something that needs to be acknowledged and respected. Um, even tobacco is something that, like, traditionally was very regarded and respected by natives, which is originally where it came from, was North America. Um, it's a substance that induces a state of consciousness. Now it's just kind of used just on a whim. But any kind of substance you put in your body should be like respected, like alcohol. But especially, like, the more powerful it is, the more respect it commands. Something like a psychedelic, or something that really puts you into an altered state. You need to, like, be aware of what you're doing, or like what state you're inducing, because, like, nothing comes without a side effect or a consequence. So it's being aware of what those are, and the potential risks, the potential factors that go into it. um, and I think there's kind of a, I don't know, we live in a world that doesn't necessarily um, respect plants in the way they used to be respected, I think.
I agree with that because we've changed the plant, right? It's not it's been genetically modified and changed to produce a lot of THC, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
It,
I think that's also following the market. That's what people want. They want to get as high as they possibly can get, which probably, like, I'm hoping that will change. Like,
it's a
people realize that it's probably not good for them to just get blasted all the time.
it's definitely embedded in our culture, right? So like, because you talked about it, like you started smoking again because you wanted to change the way you were feeling. You were feeling anxiety, and you had some feelings that you were just like trying to numb up, right? Or
Right.
deal with, or get a little reprieve from the way you were feeling.
Right.
And that's a common thing in our culture. I mean, when we have these feelings of anxiety or sadness or whatever it is, we're taught to medicate them and to change them. And what I love about Hayden is, like, through his recovery process, he has learned tools to change the way he feels that are healthy and not necessarily um, you know with a mind altering substance. Though I would say the recovery process, some people need medication. And I think that's another stigma that we need to get rid of. Some people frown down on medication. I have had a terrible experience with medication. I will just flat out say that. Maybe I'll share it sometimes. It was awful. But I have seen people do very, very well on medication too, and
Mm-hmm.
it being a huge part of their recovery process. So, and we thank you. CJG and Mary Mass. Happy New Year to you, to Mary and everybody. And then Andrea asked Hayden, how do you deal with your anxiety now?
Well, it depends. Depends on how I'm doing. Because sometimes I have healthy coping strategies and sometimes I don't have healthy coping strategies. So when I'm not doing well, I play a lot of video games, and I'll kind of escape again. Like I still have the issues that I had like when I was younger. Like the kind of things that I deal with, they're not just going to go away over time. I still struggle and I still kind of work through things in unhealthy ways sometimes, but I'm also aware that I can't like go to cannabis as a crutch. So like I know I have to find another way. So sometimes I'll exercise, sometimes I'll meditate. I do use CBD. That does help me, and it doesn't create any psychosis for me. I've been using it for like about a full year now, a little bit over a year now, and that's
Is
been
that
helpful.
under the direction of a medical professional, or is that just something you just pick up?
That's something I picked up. I mean, I asked her if CBD would interact with my medication, and she said no, it wouldn't. She said you're fine to use that. She just said no THC. So I use CBD, but I use the flower, which has like 0.5% THC, and I haven't noticed any side effects with that. So
And just disclaimer, that's Hayden's opinion. He's allowed to choose what he wants to do.
correct. That's
Every Breed
my
Matters does not advocate for the use of state-sanctioned CBD products. The only one we know that is purified and has clinical trials along with it is Epidiolex, and we say talk to your medical professional if that's something you're interested in. We're not going to tell you what to do and not advise you to go just buy it because we know there's lots of contaminants in them too. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of people have adverse reactions to CBD, not necessarily psychosis, but um, the THC can build up in a person's body with the CBD products. So hopefully, Hayden will not be sensitive to the small amounts that he's using. And so, but I just want to clarify that to the audience
Yeah,
with
no, that's fine. Yeah, you'll test positive for using, if you use full spectrum products, you can test positive for THC for sure. So it's definitely in there. Yeah.
yeah. And I know Cheryl asked, what other tools do you have for your recovery process? You talked
Oh
about
yeah, I'm on risperidone. I take 0.5 milligrams of risperidone, and that sort of keeps me, because I was diagnosed bipolar. I'm not a huge fan of diagnoses per se, because I think like it helps to some degree, but it's not necessarily like determines what that person struggles with 100%, because every case is different. But yeah, I'm on risperidone, which helps with like the ups and downs, and it helps with the anxiety. It's also prescribed as an anti-anxiety medication as well. So that helps. If I don't take it, I do notice that I get more irritable, and stress becomes more difficult for me. Meditation is something I use. Um, Yoga. I mean, really anything can be a tool. So like, it doesn't matter really like what you're doing. Obviously, like the exercise things, there's like a chemical thing. Like if you're exercising, it can release certain things in your body. So that's really big. Exercise can really change your mood. Food is super important. If you don't eat well, you're gonna probably not feel well.
or even hydrate, right? I notice when I'm not feeling good, like especially when my depression's kicking in, a lot of times I'm not even hydrated. That's why
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling so ugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like literally anything can be a tool. It just depends on how you approach the tool. Like cooking can be a tool. Um, run it like anything that like puts you in a better state of mind, or you intentionally make it something that is going to put you in a better state of mind, is a tool. So I can literally use everything, but again, it comes down to, for me, I have two ways of coping, and one is escaping, and the other one is becoming present in the moment and like focusing on what I'm doing. And so sometimes I don't always do that. Sometimes I'm escaping. But it's really hard to like always be focusing on being present and stuff. It's just, I go in waves of times where I'm like really focused and times where I'm kind of like escaping. And that's just kind of my learning curve and my development, which is also why I think I turned to drugs to begin with, because like I think as far as emotionally and psychologically, I was dealt kind of a more difficult hand. So I think I do struggle with things a little bit differently than other people. So I wanted relief from that. And I've just kind of learned different tools to help with that, I guess.
That's really good insight. I can talk a little bit about the tools I use, as a parent too, like because I want to control. I definitely still like to this day want to control, and I'm a total codependent. Then that's never going to change in me, but I
Mm-hmm.
have to use my tools to keep it at bay so I don't interfere in my children's life in a negative way. I can respond to them appropriately because usually I want to respond out of fear. So some of my tools that I've learned, and I'm learning new ones all the time. And I love the way Hayden was talking about sometimes one tool might work well for him one day and not the next. So he's got to pick something different. But one of the major ones for me is I have to pick up the phone. I have to pick up the phone and I have to call my mom squad. And I call another mom who understands what I'm going through, who's not going to be like judgmental and telling me what to do. And I got to share it. I got to get it out of my heart. I got to share it because I've learned I'm only as sick as my secrets. And then if I don't start feeling my anxiety go down at that point, I call another mom, and then maybe I'll call another mom, and then maybe I'll go to a meeting where I can share my experience and
Mm-hmm.
get it off my chest, and then feel, and get some messages of hope in that meeting, and that gets me out of my head because I have this shit show going on in my head
Mm-hmm.
that is, if I stay in my head too long, I can make it really bad. So the more I interact with my peers, and the more I like Hayden said, exercise. Sometimes um, I just have to take a quick walk around the block, or I have to get in the sunshine
Mm-hmm.
because like I'll stay in front of this computer and do all this work all day, and I can't. Like it doesn't work for me. I got to get out. I got to feel the sun on my skin. I got to get out and do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was just kind of sharing that with me and what I do. So um, to the people that are experiencing the psychosis, they'll figure out their tools
Yeah. And I
as
have
they.
a counselor and I talk with people too. I'm a big talker too. If I get stuck in my head, it's a game over. Like
Yeah.
I have to talk to someone. Like either my girlfriend or my mom or my dad. I have to talk to somebody because I have a major issue with overanalyzing and overthinking things, and that just is just another thing that I struggle with, which is probably related to my anxiety. Um, so
And it sounds like when you talk to somebody, you have a trusted person you talk to that understands.
yeah.
Like I think sometimes we tend to share with people that don't understand what we've been through and stuff, and it doesn't go well. We got to be in a safe with a safe person,
Yeah,
Sharon.
yeah, I can definitely tell who I can talk to and who I can't. Like I can like feel it. I can just kind of feel it. And we were talking about this before the show, but like I'll share my experience with people like at work or just kind of strangers that I meet, but I'm very like choosy with who I tell, but I can tell like the people that'll help. Like when I worked on my other job, it was there was a lot of people that worked there that had experiences that were difficult, like with anxiety, depression, suicide, stuff like that, um, or suicidal thinking rather, not suicide, but and so I could pick up on that, I could sense it, and I was like, hey, like it just kind of came up. I was like, yeah, I was hospitalized, and they're like, oh, really? I wouldn't have suspected that, and I was like, yeah, I went through a lot of things, and then it opens the door and it creates an opportunity for connection and opportunity to like help that person realize they're not alone. So like I'll share my experience with people I don't necessarily know super well, but usually I kind of get to know them a little bit first before I share. But um,
That's
it's
cool.
um, yeah, it can be really healing to be able to share that with other people. Like I'm okay with my experience. I don't feel like I need to share it. with another person that I'm not familiar with, but in that moment, it's healing for both of us to do that.
It is.
That's pretty powerful to do.
And I think this conversation is healing. I mean, I feel I mean, I'm being selfish. It's healing to me to have this conversation. And I
Mm-hmm.
hope it's healing for whoever's viewing it. And to Connie, yes, this is going to be recorded. And then you have a mom that could use guidance for her son. Any ideas? Yes, definitely. She needs to start attending support meetings. And Maranon has meetings, like 5 meetings a week, and maybe we're going to have 6 here soon. I'm starting a Maranon meeting that I'm leading on January the 8th for families that have um, loved ones with cannabis-induced psychosis, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which is the cyclic vomiting syndrome that can happen from not just THC products, but CBD products also, and then who have an addiction or cannabis use disorder. And I think that's one of the differences with Hayden's story. Like he talked about, I asked him, were you addicted to marijuana? And he was like, no, he was literally using it to change the way he felt and just trying something there. So then, because the next question is from Cheryl, and Cheryl actually runs a Maranon meeting and works a strong recovery program. She's a good friend of mine, and I learn so much from her all the time. She asked, "Are you participating in any support groups, Hayden, like Marijuana Anonymous or a 12-step program?"
No, I'm not part of any programs right now or any support groups. When I was recovering from psychosis, I was in support groups. Like on campus, when I was at school, I was part of a support group. I don't really feel like that's where I'm at. Like I don't feel like I'm owned by my psychosis. Like I kind of have moved past it. Like I talk about it and stuff, but it's mostly like it's healing for me, but I don't really feel like I need that kind of support right now. Like I have my girlfriend and I have people that reach out to me like on a weekly basis with psychosis from YouTube and stuff. So for me, that's kind of the community that I've created and the kind of community that like I work with, I guess. Like I said, I have a counselor, so I talk with her, but I'm I kind of have accepted like what's happened to me. Like I don't feel like I'm a victim of something or that something's like, I've been terribly like misguided. I think I made choices that resulted in an outcome that I was aware was a possibility, and I have to deal with that. But I also don't view my psychosis as a negative thing either. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in is like, and I also am only speaking from my experience too. So I know there's some people who really struggle a lot with psychosis and like they can't get out of it. And I can understand why they're very much want to get out of it. But when people ask me like, how do I get back to where I was before? I always tell them like, you're never going to go back to the way you were before. It's who you're going to be now that you have that experience. What's the next version of you? Where are you moving forward to next? Because you're never going to be the same after psychosis, just like you're never going to be the same after you get in a car accident that's traumatic. So it's like, how do you pick up those pieces and move forward? You know, some people live their whole lives stuck in their childhood. That's not a very fulfilling life to live. But some people do that because of trauma or pain, and it's not their fault. Like they're doing the best they can. But at some point, when anything traumatic happens in your life, you have to decide whether you want to keep the same relationship you have with that experience, or if you want to change it and move on with your story. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, and that's where a lot of people wish they were where they were before, or wish they were somewhere else. But that's something that a lot of people do too. Not just people who have traumatic experiences. They wish they had a better job. They wish they had a better spouse. They wish they had a better kid. They wish they had a better life. And so you can live that way. Or you can be like, you know what, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm going to do today to make my life a little bit better, and I'm okay with where I'm at right now. I'm going to work towards my goals, and this is what I have. And two different ways of looking at life, very different outcomes in how you experience that life.
Such good points. And I just came to a realization why you came out through the other side of your to experiences of psychosis, you weren't addicted to marijuana. You weren't, and that's what Marijuana Anonymous and 12-step programs. I mean, you don't have to necessarily have an addiction to do a 12-step program. I'm telling you, like, the 12 steps should be in every high school in America, in my opinion, because I'm like, man, if I would have learned this way back when, I probably could have avoided some major situations. But I think that is a key difference. And we have a lot of families that their kids have experienced cannabis-induced psychosis many times. Some are chronically still in psychosis, and they have a strong addiction to it. And they have their perception of it is that it's not causing the psychosis, it's not addictive, and it's actually helping them. And they can search the internet and get whatever evidence they want to support their perception of that. So I think that's a key point why you've done so well, because you weren't drawn back to continuing using it, and you accepted the consequences of it. People who have substance use disorder, cannabis use disorder, or addiction, they keep using despite the devastating negative consequences. That's one of the key reasons why they have like a criteria how they diagnose it, but that is one of them, that despite the consequences that are coming to them, they continue to use. So I think that's a good point. I just realized. So yeah, and that's that. You got your tools with your counselor and all your other tools that work for you. And it might not work for another person. And some people require more support. I think, to me, as a codependent, that's why I attend so many meetings. My program needs that kind of higher level of care, where I have to really check myself and work on a daily basis, because I'm grieving for a child that's still alive. And it's hard on me, and I get in my head and start playing a victim. And the recovery process helps me get out of my head and know that I'm not a victim, and that I can be fine, and I can live a very healthy, happy life regardless of the situation or the lack of relationship, and accept my loved ones for where they're at. And I'm here if they need me, kind of thing. So, yeah. So, do you have any questions for us or the audience, Hayden? Do you want to talk about anything?
Let me see.
And also, while he's looking, we just want to wish everybody a happy new year. I have my drug of choice. Let me see if I can get it in front of the camera. This is my drug of choice, and my friends, bring it to me. I get it for Christmas presents. But Topo Chico Lime, oh my gosh, it's mineral water, and it's so good. I don't know why I love it so much, but when I'm feeling down and I'm feeling like I want to change the way I feel, I pick one of these up. I keep them in the refrigerator, and I don't want to pour them in a glass. I want to drink it out of the bottle, and I don't know why it works for me. It just does. It's just a very refreshing drink to me. So that's one of my tools, one of my drug of choices. It's not a drug. I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it a drug. It's not a drug, but I just call it that. You're getting a lot of thanks on the chat, Hayden.
Oh, nice.
Do you have a question that you wanted to talk about, or?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything.
Okay, last chance to the audience to ask a question. If not, we're probably gonna wish you a happy new year to all of you. We hope you all are safe tonight. It's not a night I usually go out. My son is out at a party. My younger son. He doesn't have substance use disorder. But he works a strong recovery program. He went to an AA meeting with all his friends tonight. That's where he is right now. And then there's a big party and dance. And when he left here tonight, he's like, "I'm going to shake my booty, Mom." I'm like, "All right, kiddo, you do what you're going to do. Have fun. I wish I was there as a stalker mom videotaping you so I can embarrass you at some point." But, that's the thought process that goes through my head. I'm really happy he's having a sober night with his buddies, his squad. So I wonder if anybody else has plans. Thank you for doing this. You're so welcome. I think we really need to just really appreciate and thank Hayden for speaking up about, cannabis-induced psychosis is real. I
Mm.
guess we need to make that key point to
Yeah, for sure.
whoever's watching. Like, people deny it and they say reefer madness and all that kind of stuff. Cannabis-induced psychosis is definitely real, and it can be scary, and it can be life changing, and it is life changing. And some people come out of it and some people don't.
Mm.
And the ones that don't come out of it, if they're going to be in chronic psychosis, there's still hope. There are tools, and it takes time. I think we rushed the process. And I think Hayden made a really great key point in the beginning, taking it one day at a time, day by day, living in the moment, letting go of the past, of what happened, and just really taking good care of ourselves. That's the best answer I can give to any family. It's really, really hard not to focus on your kid or your loved one that's going through psychosis, and you definitely need to provide an environment that's safe for them, whether
Mm.
that means it's in your home or at a higher level of care or in a host family or whatever that looks like for you. But you really got to get to work on yourself, and going to support groups. The 12 steps have worked for me, or finding whatever works for you. Finding those peers you connect with is key. And in time, not only will your loved one heal, but you'll heal too. And it's a beautiful path. And it can be full of lots of fun. Like my kids partying it up tonight with a bunch of sober peers, and it's cool to watch that. And don't know those things exist, but they do.
Mm.
What is your message tonight, Hayden, to everybody about psychosis and what you've been through?
Well, I mean, life's full of surprises, I guess. You never know what's going to happen. But when it does, just do your best and just focus on what you can do in the moment. That's all you can really do. When a crisis happens, all you can do is just think about the next rational step to take. And sometimes that's all we can do, and the rest is out of our control. I know that might seem scary, but that's the reality of life. And I think if we stick to that kind of mentality, it makes things a little bit more digestible. If you can just focus on one thing at a time, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. Just know that there's no such thing as being perfect. Like, you're never going to have the right answer or the perfect answer, or you're never going to be the perfect person. So you can let that just go down the drain and just realize that, like, if your intention is pure and you're just trying your best, you're going to make mistakes, but it's the recovery afterwards that makes the difference. It's like coming up and acknowledging that you made a mistake and taking the next step that is in the right direct or the better direction based off the information you learned from that mistake. That's basically life. If you keep on doing that, you're going to make progress. Whether you are recovering from psychosis or a caretaker for someone who's gone through psychosis or anything in life, that's all you can really do. And yeah.
And hope for the best, right? And
For the best.
let go of the outcomes. And I think I have one more question for Hayden, and then we'll end it, and wish you all a safe, happy New Year. Hayden, tonight, what's a big party night, and there's going to be people using, probably more than the normal amount using. If somebody's having an adverse reaction, like let's say they're feeling paranoid or they're having anxiety, and what recommendations can you give to the person that's experiencing that and the people around them, if they need to get help or something like that? What would you say to them if somebody's having an adverse reaction to cannabis tonight?
If it were me and I was experiencing something adverse like that, or I saw a friend who was experiencing something adverse like that, I would get them away from everybody else. I would get them into a room that's like comfortable and quiet, put on some music that I know will calm them down or help them calm down, and just be there present with them. You kind of have to really be intuitive and sense like where they're at, because they're in a different space. So like you have to feel what's happening with them and really like unlock where they're stuck, because like usually someone who is experiencing an adverse reaction from cannabis, they're either too high, or they're stuck in a thought loop, or they're stuck in something. So to help them kind of break that up, it can sort of reduce the symptoms that they're experiencing. If you're too high, like you just got to ride it out. That's from my experience. I don't know, like I'm not a doctor, so I can't say like when to bring them to a doctor, but like I don't know what that would be like. I
Well,
don't think.
definitely if they were a harm to themselves or somebody else.
Yeah, if obviously that, yeah, like they're causing problems. But usually if someone's like too high, they're just like laying on the floor, like,
Yeah.
just kind of in fetal position or something.
Yeah. If they're not having like a seizure, or I mean, and they're breathing okay. If they are irrational, it's okay to get more help. And if that is a crisis situation where they are a harm to themselves or somebody else, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to call 911
Mm-hmm.
and explain to them that we have a situation here that does not need to be escalated.
Right.
That we need, understanding that this person's having this type of reaction to a drug, and we need help and support. So,
Right.
and definitely don't, if you're around a person too, I would say that's having that and they're trying to harm you, it's okay to leave them and get yourself safe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good insight. I love the way to another room, get them out of that those inputs, because
Yeah.
that's, if there's a lot of loud music, it's going to make it worse.
Sensory overload. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've helped people who are both high and drunk. Usually, mostly drunk, because most of my friends were drinkers. I never was a drinker. I didn't like it, but when they got too drunk, I would just hone in on them, bring them somewhere else, play some music, maybe get them in a shower or something, and it's a kind of similar procedure, except with cannabis, people get stuck in spaces, whereas alcohol, you're just drunk. So it's a little different. It's not
Yeah.
as psychological. It's more physical.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I'll just add too, if they're unresponsive, it's okay to ask for help, especially when alcohol's involved. Sometimes I think they just need to sleep it off. But if they're literally not responding,
yeah,
you
yeah. If
know,
I'm not breathing, not responding, then definitely call help for sure.
yeah,
But I've never had to do that for cannabis. So I haven't had to do it for alcohol either. But I've never experienced anybody having that happen to them. So luckily, knock on wood. I mean, I don't hang out with that kind of crowd anyways, so I've never really been presented with situations where I'd have to.
right.
So.
Yeah, I'm in the same position. Like if
I'm
I
not
was
a I'm
in
not a
a
party person.
yeah, if I was in a party where there was a lot of drinking and drugging, I wouldn't be there. I would walk in and be like, "Hey, how's it going? Oh, great. Okay, see you later." Like it's not going to
Yeah,
be where I'm going to hang out. I'm not comfortable in those
yeah,
situations at all.
yeah. I'm more like hanging out with my bros, like hanging out with my homies, like 3 or 4 people max, or maybe 7 people if they invite their friends. Like I don't really like big parties. They're
Yeah,
neither too insincere. I don't like superficial interactions. So anything more than 10 people, it gets kind of superficial quickly.
that's true.
For
That's true.
me personally, I don't
Okay.
like it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. So pick sober place to go to tonight, guys, and stay safe and happy new year. And we'll keep raising more awareness of cannabis-induced psychosis. And we're so grateful for Hayden being here. And you can follow him on YouTube at Just Being Hayden.
Mm-hmm.
And you can please follow the Every Brain Matters YouTube and join us. You can support us on Patreon for just $2 a month, so we can keep bringing content like this, and exposure, and then we can help more people get help, raise awareness and get help. So God bless you all. Love you guys.
Thank you.
All right, Hayden, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody.